Hey folks, welcome back to the Contrarians. This is another Contrarians Presents episode where I'm going to take a little look at the Black Sabbath discography of the 70's, so all of the Aussie albums, and take a look at the singles that were released and give you my contrary single picks. So Black Sabbath isn't known as like a singles band or a real commercial band, but they did release a lot of singles for each of the records that came out in the 70's. So I'm going to kind of take a look at them and just give my 2 cents as somebody who's a fan of the band of what I think of the singles that were released and which ones I might have picked over them if I agree or disagree with them. So right off the bat, the first three records, all produced by Roger Bain, and I love the production on the first three records even though the first record from Black Sabbath might be a little, I think gets kind of slagged for the production here and there. I really dig the first record. I actually really dig the first three records. I dig all the Ozzy albums from the 70's, even Never Say Die, which gets put down quite a bit. But for the first record, one of the singles you had that came out was Evil Woman, which actually didn't show up on the record until other re-releases of the record came out. I think that that's a really cool song that could have been on a single. The Wizard was another single that came out, and it's very interesting because The Wizard might be one of my favorite tracks off the record, and I think it's really cool. But it's just really interesting that that came out as a single. NIB I think would have been a good single considering that's a classic Sabbath song that they play live a lot and shows up on their greatest hits and stuff like this or their best of albums. But I would dare to say that the song Warning would have made a good single. That also is a cover. Evil Woman is a cover. Warning is a cover of an Ainsley Dunbar Retaliation song that was a single for that band. Obviously, they would have to edit it down because it's over 10 minutes, that track. But I really like their version of that song. It's pretty bluesy, but I think the performances are well done. If there was an edited version of Warning, I think that would have made a really cool single, especially for record collectors. But other than that, I mean, like they are kind of odd. Evil Woman and Wizard are kind of odd choices for singles. So I would either say NIB or Warning would have made good singles. When it comes to Paranoid, I mean, you had Paranoid and Iron Man come out as the singles, and who can argue with that? No matter what you think of the album Paranoid and those two tracks, I know there's a lot of Sabbath fans who put those tracks down because of how overplayed they are, whether it's live or on greatest hits compilations or on the radio. But I mean, you can't argue with the success of those songs. Those are their two most well known songs, and they came off of their most well-known record. So you can't, there's not much to argue with Paranoid. But if I move on to Master of Reality, Children of the Grave was the single for Master of Reality with Solitude as the B-side, which is cool. I like that they put Solitude on the B-side. I like Black Sabbath's kind of more mellower tracks. As Martin Popoff would say, they're dirges. Like you'll see, even with all their records, like Changes and Planet Caravan and Solitude, like they put out quite a few. I don't like to call them ballads, but they are kind of more mellower, but they're even heavy for kind of mellower songs. And I kind of like them as B-sides. There's one song I would say on a record coming up that I would pick as the A-side. But for Master of Reality, probably what I would choose as a single instead of Children of the Grave would be something like Sweet Leaf. I don't think they made a bad decision with Children of the Grave, but I would pick maybe Sweet Leaf, or even for a record collector, not even so much as like a radio hit single. I would say even Lord of This World. Like I like the sound of the production on Lord of This World. It sounds really cool. The lyrics are very poignant. I like Geezer's bass kind of cutting through the mix. I like the dual guitar soloing going on in that one. It's just probably a really cool track off that record that it probably, like a lot of these singles did not chart at all. So if it's not going to chart anyways, I think Lord of This World would have been a really cool choice for a single for somebody who collects singles and records. Moving on to Volume 4, the only track that was released as a single on Volume 4 was Tomorrow's Dream, which is quite interesting, with Laguna Sunrise as the B-side. Now, when it comes to Volume 4, I absolutely think the most banging track off of Volume 4, and one of their most banging tracks from the 70's, is Supernaut. That totally could have been a single. That honestly is one of the strongest songs off Volume 4. which is one of my favorite Sabbath records from the 70s for sure. It somehow manages to be really heavy and groovy at the same time, and also somehow manages to sound like classic Sabbath and nothing like any other Sabbath song at the same time. So I kind of think that, you could probably lose that cool kind of funky jam at the end and just edit it, because I don't know how well that would play on the radio. But I mean, like, Super Not totally should have been the single off of that record. I think even other artists like Frank Zappa said it was his favorite Black Sabbath song. Now, personally, my favorite track off of Volume 4 would be Snowblind. That one's classic Sabbath, gets progressive. It has the, kind of that speed up change near the end. That gets really heavy. It's the lyrics, everything about that song I like. It's probably one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs. But I do think that probably a single with Supernaut, with either changes as the B-side for something different, or maybe even something like Saint Vitus Dance might have been a cool B-side. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it would have been difficult to see a song like Cornucopia on a single, or even Under the Sun, even though I like those tracks. But that's kind of like my alternate pick for Volume 4. I would totally go with Snowblind. Then you move on to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Their single off of that one was the title track, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I mean, not much to argue with there. They even did a video for that one, which is really cool. The one where they're going around through the forest. Something else that I might have picked off of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath would have been something like Spiral Architect, which is a little different than other Sabbath tracks. It sounds a little different. It's kind of it's maybe a little bit mellower, but it's kind of epic sounding. That could have been a cool A side or B side. And I totally, just out of my like pure love for the song, would have picked something like Killing Yourself to Live. It's a great combination of riff, lyrics, melody, bass line, twangy guitar. Everything works on it. It's proggy, it's cool, it's classic Sabbath. That would have been something very cool for, I think, a single, with something mellow on the B side, right? Like, they did release Changes as the B side to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So you could have even put Changes as the B side to something like Killing Yourself to Live, which would have been, I think, a cool combination. Other than that, I think probably those might have been my picks for that one, Spiral Architect and or Killing Yourself to Live. But can't disagree with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath too much. That is a really killer song off a really killer Sabbath record. And again, none of these singles charted at all. I think Paranoid charted, but none of the other ones that I had gone through, Children of the Grave, Tomorrow's Dream, like none of those charted. From Technical Ecstasy, Sabotage, getting ahead of myself. So they picked Am I Going Insane as a single off of this record, which I would have never picked. I would, that's probably the only track from Sabbath from the 70s that I disliked. And I wouldn't put that anywhere near a single. The B-side to Am I Going Insane, Hole in the Sky, I think out of anything off of Sabotage, probably could have been the pick for the single. I mean, Sabotage is pretty proggy, so it would be hard to see something like, even though I love Thrill of It All and I love The Writ, it'd be kind of hard to see those kind of come out as singles, I guess, unless maybe you kind of edited them down a bit. But those ones seem less like Warning. I can see you can edit that one and kind of make it into like a 3-minute song, right? But something like The Writ or Thrill of It All, I don't think you could edit very well. And I don't think that would translate very well on a single. So I would go with Hole in the Sky, basically just because it is very classic Sabbath sounding and could have appeared on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which I think is probably their best record from the 70s. I know Martin says Sabotage is their best, and it's pretty close. I mean, for me, I mean, all of them are great from the 70s. So I would probably say the B side to Am I Going Insane would have made a better A side than Am I Going Insane. On the B side, you might have put something like, I don't know, maybe the instrumental, like Superstar would have been cool off of Sabotage. But like I said, I think Hole in the Sky probably had its best chance from Sabotage over Am I Going Insane. When it comes to Technical Ecstasy, you have It's All Right as an A side and Gypsy as an A side, which is very interesting because I like Gypsy, but it's just odd thinking of that one as a singles choice. It's All Right makes sense because It's All Right, you know, it again, it's mellow. It's Bill Ward at a piano. It does sound kind of commercial. It does sound like it might have been a hit for somebody if they weren't Black Sabbath. Again, it didn't. It's All Right didn't chart. It didn't have that kind of commercial appeal, but I can kind of see that they're going with something maybe a little bit different than the rest of even what that album sounded like, or even the rest of the catalog from the 70s. So it kind of makes sense that they put that on an A side. That could have been a B side. Rock and Roll Doctor was the B side to It's All Right. That could have even been an A side. The B side to Gypsy was She's Gone, which again makes sense because it's different. It's very mellow. It's again, this isn't the era of the power ballads. Like the era of the power ballads is like the 80s, but I wouldn't even call She's Gone a power ballad. It's just kind of like a dark ballady type of song that makes sense as like a B side. If I were going to pick maybe like an A side, again, I would probably go with something like Rock and Roll Doctor, or you could have went with Dirty Women, which is I think a live staple of Black Sabbath. It's very classic sounding Sabbath. It is long, but again, you could have done a radio edit, I guess. Other than that, I think even Backstreet Kids would have been a really cool single. Whether it would have charted or not, I don't know. But Backstreet Kids would have been an awesome track to put on a single for vinyl or record collectors. So Technical Ecstasy has a few choices there. Very, very interesting that they picked Gypsy, which I like a lot, actually. And then for Never Say Die, it's interesting because Never Say Die is put down a lot, I think, by Black Sabbath fans. I love Never Say Die. I think it's very underrated. It's not my top favorite Black Sabbath record ever, but it's, you know, it's pretty up there. I like it a lot. They picked Never Say Die and Hard Road, and I would totally agree with both of those choices. I think Never Say Die and Hard Road were perfect as A sides. It's interesting because Symptom of the Universe and She's Gone were the B sides to Never Say Die and Hard Road, and both of those came off of previous records. Symptom of the Universe would have made a cool A side too, which is considered one of the first thrash metal songs ever, right? But I think Hard Road was a perfect choice from Never Say Die, and I wouldn't disagree with either of those. If I were to look at Never Say Die, you might say something like maybe Junior's Eyes is probably one of the standout tracks from that record. I don't know how well that would have done on the radio, but something like Over to You might have been a cool little single, right? With maybe the instrumental on the B-side Breakout. That could have been a cool single too. And that one's even it's a little catchy, Over to You. I find that to be a very underrated song off a very underrated record in general. So those are kind of my choices. I kind of did a quick view of the 70s records. I did take a look at some of the singles they had picked after the 70s, you know, in the Heaven and Hell era and even the Born Again era and stuff like this. I kind of pretty much agreed with those. Maybe Martin will do a version of the Black Sabbath singles that he would have picked. Maybe I might do a part two when we look at like the 80s and beyond. But I kind of agreed with some of those. And I kind of agree with quite a few of the 70s ones, although I think there's a few different choices that you could have switched out for some of those records. Again, like for something like Never Say Die, like, yeah, I love the song Johnny Blade, but I probably wouldn't pick that as a single. And I'm not like a radio or singles expert. These are just kind of just a fun way to have a different look at the discography and kind of be able to discuss the music again in a different way than what we normally do. So those are my contrary single picks. Let me know why I'm wrong or what Sabbath song I kind of missed that would have made a good single. Again, they weren't really a singles band. A lot of these singles didn't chart, but it's cool for collectors to go back and see some of these tracks like Tomorrow's Dream or Children of the Grave on a single. Like that's, you know, they put out some cool singles, some interesting choices as B-sides. A lot of the times the B-sides came off of different records than the record that the single was representing. So that's interesting. And they definitely had a few choices that I never would have picked as a single, and skipped some obvious choices. I think they skipped some obvious choices for singles, but where they got it completely right, I think was Paranoid. Paranoid and Iron Man, absolutely the two strongest singles they could have picked off of that record. Other than that, let me know what you think in the comments. We also have Patreon, where we have Patreon chats with the folks that support us on Patreon. You know, give the video a like, subscribe if you like the content we're doing, and we're at the end of the day, we're just fans of music, and this is a fun little exercise, and hopefully you dig it as much as we dig recording it. Thanks. Have a great day.
that's it, dude.